What's going on, guys? Let's talk about a place you can move, where you can live for a fraction of the cost, build real wealth, put more money back in the bank, and actually live a life of your dreams. Right now, I'm in front of one of the main landmarks, the Dragon Bridge of Da Nang. The reason why I came here almost a year ago now is for a few reasons which I'll get into in this video. But let me tell you, one of the smartest financial decisions that you can possibly make is to move to a country where the value of your money goes much further, so that you can do multiple things with it. Not only invest it into your future and build real wealth, but also so that you can take more risks and do things that is hopefully going to allow you to make more money into the future. So if you're ready to learn why moving to Vietnam is going to make you rich, keep watching this video because I'm going to show you exactly how.
Yes, guys, this is how to get rich in your 20s by moving to Vietnam. Now, I know what you're thinking. Jordan, are you absolutely mental? How on earth are you going to be able to get rich in a third world country, developing country, and a communist country? Like, how is it even possible, mate? You must be off your rocker. Well, look, if you just keep watching this video, I'm going to explain step by step how you can get rich by moving to Vietnam, because it's actually much more simpler than you probably think. And the only way to do that is by sticking around and just watching what I've got to say. So, the main thing that you have to understand is that it's one of the fastest growing economies in Southeast Asia, if not the fastest growing. Now, I've got a little bit of a graph over here on the right. This is the GDP growth rate, 2025 forecast. Philippines is number one, and then just under it is Vietnam. Now, I've lived in every country in Southeast Asia except Laos, and I can tell you straight up that Vietnam is modernizing at a far quicker pace than the Philippines. It's been said to be one of the next rising stars or the next Asian tigers. So if you look at the rise of, Taiwan, Singapore, Korea, these are terms the Asian tigers. And so Vietnam is being placed into that bracket. If you look at where Singapore is at today, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, it was just like a small piece of land, right? And now it's an economic powerhouse. If you look at Korea, I mean, they went through countless wars, and now it's an economic powerhouse. A lot of these experts out there in the world, economic experts, they're placing Vietnam in the same bracket of these countries. And Vietnam right now is at the very beginning stages. So there's a lot to look forward to. It's got a stable and popular government, despite it being a communist country and everything that you hear in the West about how bad communist countries are. Whether you think they're good or bad is irrelevant. If you come to Vietnam, you'll see that the government quite clearly cares about its people. It's a very stable government. They're rooting out corruption. Everything tends to work relatively well. It's a very safe place, which I'll get into very shortly. And most of the people like the government because of all the policies that they're implementing or have been implementing over the past few decades. If you come, you'll notice most of the businesses are like on the ground floor, and then above the business is where people live. So everyone basically is an entrepreneur, which I think is bloody awesome. And so, yeah, it's super stable, popular government. Everyone is pretty happy. As long as you're being pulled out of poverty in these countries, most people are pretty happy, despite some of the other problems that we'll talk about a little bit later. It's very pro-business here. Most of the manufacturing is getting moved from China into Vietnam because they're so close to each other. And the price of manufacturing things is obviously rising in China. So a lot of countries are trying to diversify. They're moving it to Vietnam where it's a lot cheaper. Plus, obviously, global politics and things like that means that a lot of these countries, a lot of these businesses, they don't just want to rely on China as their manufacturing hub, because if something happens, I mean, everyone's screwed, right? So they're kind of diversifying. So they're pro-business with manufacturing, and also they're massive on tech. They're big on crypto and Bitcoin. I went to an industry conference or a trade show not too long ago. I flew over to Ho Chi Minh for that. And the amount of people that are just like super interested in Bitcoin and crypto, I mean, it's out of this world. I didn't know it was going to be so popular considering the country is developing. Yeah, they're very pro-business. Everyone seems to have that entrepreneurial spirit, which I love. This place is growing at a phenomenal rate. I'm telling you, just from being here for the last year, Vietnam is going to be on par with Thailand, or it's going to surpass it in more ways than one. But why Vietnam specifically? Because there's a lot of countries in Southeast Asia. A lot of them are growing. Yeah, Vietnam's number one, number two, growing really quickly, etc. But so what? Who really cares? Well, there's a few reasons why. Okay, firstly, it's a low cost of living. So if you are just starting a business or you're thinking about starting a business and you currently live in a place like Australia, as an example, where you have to pay what, $350 a week just for rent, even if you rent with friends or rent with people. I mean, the cost of living in Vietnam is $350 a month. So you're able to save a significant amount of money compared to if you live in the West. And so what you're going to do with that money? Well, hopefully you're not just going to piss it all up and go drinking and partying and waste your life. Hopefully you're going to invest that money into your business, hire staff, get software. It's going to allow you to actually grow your company. And not only that, you'll hopefully be saving money as well, especially if your company is making money. So one of the reasons why I came to Vietnam, because I wanted to see how cheap it was. And I just thought, well, if it's really cheap compared to Australia, like for example, I was spending about $560 a week in Australia, right? That's Australian dollars. And now in Vietnam, in Da Nang, I'm spending $500 a month on rent. So a week of rent in Australia is more expensive than a month rent in Vietnam. And I've got a really awesome place. It's just a 1-bedroom apartment, has a kitchen, bathroom, as you should expect. It's got everything I need, nice balcony, big windows. Like the cost of living is just significantly lower than anywhere else. Food and everything like that is also cheap. And you can eat really good food for not very much money. And it just means that you can have a good quality of life. If you live in the West, again, based on my experience of Australia, you're working Monday to Friday. The money that you're making, you're trying to save it. Maybe you'll go out on the weekends or on a Friday night or something. But typically Monday to Thursday, you're going to be cooking dinner at home. You're going to be taking your lunch to work because you're making it the day before because you want to save money. And most people, they have a secondary income because you're going to marry someone or your partner's going to be working as well. So you have a dual income. You don't need to worry about any of that stuff in Vietnam. All that money that you're able to save can then be invested back into your business, into advertising, into marketing, everything like that. It's also really expat friendly. If you go to Ho Chi Minh, there's a lot of different events for expats. You've got chambers of commerce and things like that. Everything is set up for tourism in a way, or at least to be marketed to people who are foreign. Because with Vietnam, they're not really used to tourists. They're quite a new country in terms of coming onto the global scene. After the Vietnamese War, they had sanctions and they had to rebuild their country and their economy and everything. So when you come to Vietnam, it's like being in a new place. They're not super familiar with it, but they're building the country to align with expats and nomads because they want to attract that foreign investment and they want to get more tourism. The internet is good as well. Some places you go, again, an example would be the Philippines. Some places you go in the Philippines, the internet sucks and it's really hard to find good cafes or good places to work remotely. Even if you get like a co-working space, sometimes the internet's bad, it goes off, there's problems. If there's a storm, the electricity goes off. In Vietnam, it's completely different. Internet works really, really well. You've got the your speed over here on the right, just as an example. This is from 2023, it's 2024 now. So, you can see that it's pretty good. If you compare that to Australia, this is actually faster than Australia's internet speed, which I think is awesome considering that Australia is a first world country. Vietnam is developing, right? It's a third world country. And so there's no problems with the internet. Everywhere I go, whatever cafe I go to or coffee spot, if I travel to a different city, I'm going to have no problems finding either a co-working space, of which there are many, or just a cafe that I can go and sit in and I can do my work. If you get a SIM card, the 4G, the 3G on your SIM card works perfectly well. I've not had any problems with the internet since I've been here. Vietnam's super fast, and that's mostly because of the infrastructure. Everything just works very nicely. I believe that they're building more infrastructure in Ho Chi Minh, if not already, where they have like an underground train and things like that. And of course, you've got safety as well. This is another thing that I didn't realize until I came here, but Vietnam, compared to the other Asian countries, is probably one of the safest ones I've been to. I haven't seen any problems. In fact, I don't even see many police here in Da Nang. Only recently have I seen some police because they're telling off, some of the foreigners and expats for not wearing helmets when they ride a motorbike. But beside that, I really haven't seen any problems. Haven't seen Vietnamese get aggressive with each other. Haven't seen like any fights or anything like that. Everything just seems to work nicely. Most people don't even lock their doors, which I find wild compared to the Western world. If you don't lock your door in the UK, for example, someone's going in and robbing you. Vietnam doesn't really seem to operate that way. Obviously, I'm careful. Like if I go to a cafe or a co-working space, I'm just not just leaving my phone anywhere. Unlike some places, if you go to like Singapore or some places in Thailand, you can just leave your phone like on the table to hold your space whilst you go and buy your food. I wouldn't do that in Vietnam, but I haven't seen anything to say that you shouldn't do that. You know what I mean? So do it at your own risk, but relatively safe. The only unsafe aspect about Vietnam, for me personally, would be the roads. There's literally no road rules, which we'll get into in a second. But yeah, look, Vietnam ranks among 10 safest countries in Asia in 2024. If you're thinking about coming here on your own to build your business, to grow it online, I mean, you're going to be pretty safe in Vietnam. It's got everything you need. And that's why you should be coming here because, of these reasons, low cost of living, you're going to be able to network people. Everything's, marketed and tailored towards you, fast internet, great infrastructure to get around. It's easy to line up at airports and things like that. You don't have to wait long. Like everything just works, and if something doesn't work, usually someone's going to help you out. In my opinion, if you're going to come here, Ho Chi Minh is going to be the one. Now, I know I might sound a bit funny saying that because I've been living in Da Nang, but there's a reason why I came to Da Nang. It's because I was previously in a city. I was in Manila for, a year and a half. So I wanted to come to more of a beachy place. Da Nang actually, funny enough, is not just a beachy place. So if you compare it to somewhere like Bali, they're completely different. In Da Nang, they actually do have skyscrapers and things. There's two separate parts to Da Nang. You've got like the city area, they call it downtown. And you've also got, the beach side. So you can actually live right next to the beach. I'm talking like steps away from the beach. You can have a villa on the beach if you want. So you literally open your door, your back door, and you can walk out onto the beach. It's absolutely amazing that you can do that. There's not many places in the world that you can actually do that. Okay. And if you did, it would cost you a fortune. Here in Da Nang, you can do that for maybe like $5,000 a month, which isn't a lot of money considering you're right on the beach. You've got an amazing villa. It depends on how much money you earn. But of course, if you want to do it, you've got the money. Da Nang is going to be one of the cheaper places to do it. But then you've got the city side of things. So if you want to go out to the clubs and things like that, you do have the cities. You've got skyscrapers, hotels. You have the business districts. Like I was saying earlier, there's a whole section of Da Nang. I think it's a northwest part of the city, which is just sectioned off for like the tech companies, the technological hub, the high tech area. So that's why I felt like Da Nang was pretty cool for me to come and check out. And so far I like it, but obviously Ho Chi Minh, 9 times the size of Da Nang. So you're going to meet more people. It's going to be more opportunities for networking, more opportunities to sell there or build a business there, depending on what you want to do. Hanoi is somewhere that I haven't been, but I have heard a lot of good stuff about Hanoi. For me, from what I understand, it's more of a government place. So if you're going to be doing anything in business that's relevant to the government, maybe you want to base yourself there. But if you're going to have a business in Vietnam and you're selling to the Vietnamese, it might be good to have an office in Hanoi because that way you'll be able to make those connections. And in a place like Vietnam, I can already tell your connections mean a lot. If you have the connections, you're typically going to be making a lot more money compared to if you didn't have connections. And then there's Nha Trang. From what I understand, it's very similar to Da Nang, but just smaller. Now, how can you actually get rich from moving to Vietnam? It sounds a bit wild because it is a developing country. Number one, I did mention it earlier, you're going to have more capital for your business. The more money you make in the West, the more you end up spending on your rent, on your staff, on your bills and everything. It's very hard to get ahead if you stay in those countries. This is why a lot of people move to Southeast Asia. So I mean, it's one of the reasons I moved to Southeast Asia. Like I said, I was spending $560 a week on rent. I was living in the Gold Coast. I had a beautiful place, absolutely loved it. One of my dream places to live. But $560 a week is crazy, especially if you're just growing your business. If something happens, maybe you lose clients, whatever, if something happens, the amount of money you're spending is suddenly going to be a problem. You need to cut those expenses. And living in the West makes it very difficult for you to grow a business and then maintain a certain level. Unless you're just a gun with making a heap of money online, which you will be if you keep watching the videos on my YouTube channel. But it's far better to take the money and invest it back into your business. I have almost 10 staff now. If I lived in Australia still, I wouldn't be able to do that. And then saving potential. Again, like if you're living in Australia, 560 a week on rent, plus your car, plus your bills, plus your petrol, plus your insurance, groceries was like $200 a week. I mean, it really just stacks up. All of that you can get in Vietnam. It costs far less, significantly less, and you can just enjoy life more. Like I go out for breakfast, lunch, and dinner all the time, and I'm not even eating cheap. I can actually go eat at a nice restaurant, have a nice breakfast, and I don't even have to think about it because the amount of money I'm making in my business and the amount of money I'm saving allows me just to have a good life. Every now and then I can take a trip to Ho Chi Minh. I can get an Airbnb, live on the beach, villa just steps away from the sand. I can do that because I'm able to save more money and I just have more capital to invest in my business, so I can spend it on ads, which means I'm able to make more money in my business because the money I save can then be invested into ads and marketing or team members. It's pretty straightforward. This is the reason why a lot of people go to Bali, a lot of people go to the Philippines, a lot of people go to Thailand. Right now, Vietnam is one of the cheapest places you can possibly go, and it's got everything you need. So I would 100% recommend that you at least give it a go. If you stay in the West, you can still make it happen because of the networks, but you're making it much harder for yourself. Use geo arbitrage to your advantage. The lifestyle of Vietnam, some people have asked me, is it similar to Thailand? It's honestly completely different in terms of like the culture, the people. Just the lifestyle of Vietnam is totally different. Yes, you do have some similarities with Thailand, but the culture is very different. Thailand is a lot more kind of open. It's kind of got like that sexual vibe, I'll be honest with you. Vietnam doesn't have that so much. It's a bit more of a mature place to come. Probably better if you've got families and things like that. Whereas in Thailand, it's a bit more of like a young man's paradise. Just saying it straight up. That's pretty much what it is. Vietnam's a little bit different. Yeah, you can do all the same things in Vietnam, but it's not as seedy or like red light districty as Thailand. Now there's a few mistakes you have to avoid, or you have to be aware of certain things. And these are things I didn't know until I came here. So I'm hoping that this part of the video is going to be very helpful for most of you. First one is rent. Make sure when you're renting somewhere that you check to see if it's near noisy areas at night or in the morning. So don't just like rent somewhere super quick. Actually do a little bit of research. I rented somewhere for a few months because I couldn't find anywhere else. And I was stupid not to do this. And I ended up renting somewhere that was right smack bang in the middle of a bunch of bars. But when you walk through it in the daytime, you didn't notice. It's just at night, everything comes alive in Vietnam. I don't know why. It's more of a nightlife place, I guess, probably because it's so hot. But you want to make sure that you rent somewhere that's going to align with the environment you want to be in. So for me, that was bad. Even though I've got earplugs and things, it was bad. Like in the mornings, I was getting woken up. I couldn't sleep at night. So I had to eventually move. Another thing with rent is you need to be able to meet the landlord or whoever's going to be responsible for you whilst you're there, because there's going to be problems, and you want to make sure that you can trust the person to help you out and to deal with those things. I'm very lucky because when I moved from the first place to where I am now, the landlord is super nice, super friendly. If there's any problems, she gets it done. And we have a nice, friendly relationship with each other. But I've heard stories in some of the expat groups that people rent these places and the landlord tries to scam them or doesn't fix things. I mean, this is common in a lot of places, but when you're in a different country like Vietnam, where English isn't so prevalent and you can't read Vietnamese and things work a little bit differently, then you're going to want to have a relationship with a landlord that you can trust and respect. So just be very careful with the rent. Luckily, it's pretty cheap. Depends where you go. I'm spending like $350 a month plus bill. So let's say $400 a month. You can spend more, you can spend less. I'm kind of happy medium. It works for me. And also, there's a lot of construction. I made an Instagram story about this the other day. There's construction all over the place. Where I am now, 2 buildings have gone up since I've been here. I've only been in this apartment for maybe 4 months. 2 buildings have gone up, which means constant noise, difficult to make videos. Right now, I'm very lucky. There's been a few bangs and things during this video, but don't think you would have been able to tell, luckily, because I've got the microphone. But yeah, just keep that in mind. It's a growing country. There's a lot of construction. It's a good thing for the people here. There's jobs. It means that things are happening. But for you, it means you've got to be very careful on where you live. Buying property is another one. I was looking at buying a property here. What I have been told is that you can't get a mortgage unless you're buying it on behalf of a business. So if you have a business here in Vietnam, you can get a mortgage. If you don't, you've got to buy the property based on your own liquid. And you don't get a 30-year mortgage. You'd have to actually give them pretty much the entire value of the property within about 3 years. 2 to 3 years is what I got told. So it's not like you put a deposit down and get a mortgage. It just works differently. I don't know why. I'd have to dig into that a little bit more. But I see the potential of the property market here. But if you have to spend a heap of money within 2 to 3 years, it might not make sense unless you have a lot of capital. So just keep that in mind. Also, you don't own the property. You can't own land. And if you own an apartment, let's say it's a building, foreigners can only own 30 to 40% of that building. The rest has to be Vietnamese, which I agree with. I think that's good. But you don't actually own it like forever. You have a lease. I believe it's 50 years. That's not really a big deal if you're looking at it as an investment and you intend to sell it. But just keep that in mind. Visas, certain countries can come in without having a visa. Other countries need to have a visa. You've got to print it off. If I come in on my Australian passport, I actually have to have a visa. If I come in on my British one, I get a visa on arrival. So I usually just come on my British one. That's why it's good to have multiple passports, citizenships, and things like that. If you want to stay longer, though, if you want to stay long term, you can stay for 3 months. Restaurants and eating, I have heard stories where some of the restaurants will serve animal meat that isn't what they say it is. So just be very careful what you are eating. In Vietnam, they eat pretty much everything, including dogs and cats and things. So just be very careful what you're going to be eating. The hygiene of the place is not so good most of the time in these restaurants. So try and pick places that do have good hygiene. But just accept it. It's a third world country. It's developing. I'm sure it will improve over time. If you went to Thailand 10 years ago, it would have been the same. When you're paying people, make sure you know how much you're paying them, because sometimes they will try and scam you. Get your money from ATMs near banks. That's always just something that you should do in any country, just to be careful. Carry money around with you. If you can, try and open up a Vietnamese bank whilst you're here. So if you're planning on staying, for a year, for example, and you're just going to leave every 3 months, just get a 1-year lease, and you can use that 1-year lease as a way to open up a bank account. And that way you can just pay yourself on TransferWise into your Vietnamese bank account. And then you can just scan every time you want to pay. That's what I do. When I first got to Vietnam, I had to keep going to the ATM. It's a real pain in the ass. When you run out of money, you're done for. You've got to use your card, and then you have to get charged over transaction fees, international fees. I just went to the bank, got my own bank account. Now I just pay myself from my company each week, put some money in there, and then I just scan everything for the week. It makes it so easy. You can do it in pretty much any shop, grab drivers, whatever you want. Everyone's just able to scan, right? You can just pay people money. Road rules, there's none. From what I've seen in Da Nang and Ho Chi Minh, they don't really have any signs. No one even looks at the signs, even if there is signs, and there doesn't seem to be any rules when it comes to driving. People drive on the wrong side of the road. They'll come out of their house or whatever onto the main road, and they don't even look left and right. They don't stop for each other. I have no idea how it seems to function, but it seems to function well. I haven't seen any accidents. Some people say it's like organized chaos. That's what it looks like to me. You can see all the traffic over here in the top right in this slide. There's heaps of bikes. Even if you drive a car, you'd definitely be much safer driving a car than a motorbike. But even then, you've got to watch out for all the motorbikes around you, because they just don't even care. They just seem to do what they want to do. No one likes stopping. They have traffic lights in very few places. The roundabouts are nuts. It's one of the craziest places that I've ever experienced with driving. So if you come here, definitely wear a helmet. Just be careful. Personally, I just get Grab. I'll just get like a Grab car. Someone can take me. It's less energy for me to worry about. That way I can just work in the car. If I'm on a motorbike and, I've got a Grab driver driving me on a motorbike because I want to be quicker, I don't have to think about moving around. Your energy is super important if you're trying to build a business, if that's what you're coming for in the first place. And then you get to save yourself some energy by not having to worry about if you're going to die on the roads or not. So I just let other people drive. I can afford it. If you can do, I would recommend to do the same. It's not like Bali, guys. It's not like Thailand. It's its own thing. And for some reason, the foreigners that come here drive like the Vietnamese. I don't know why they do that. I would still drive normally if I was here, but yeah, it's crazy. So the road rules is probably one of the biggest things that I don't like, which I would imagine will change at some point. Now, if you don't have a business, you don't know what kind of business to make, but you want to just travel the world, you want to live in Vietnam, but you don't know how to make money online, check out a link in the description below. There's a free course going to teach you how to land 6 and 7 figure deals so that you can sell for other companies, so that you can book meetings for other companies. And that's going to get you started. It's honestly one of the best ways for you to make money online. Yes, you can build a business, but what I would recommend you do is just learn how to book meetings and sell to people. If you can do those two things, you can build any type of business. You can work with any type of company, and then the world's your oyster. So link in the description below. If you like this video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel for more content like this. I'll see you in the next one.